Welcome to the Lady Yum Yum Show. Today we're making easy peasy cherry pie, and what makes it so easy to make is there's no crust to roll out. So let's get started. We're going to start over at the sink with the cherries. I'm just going to pull off the stem and use my handy dandy cherry pitter to pit the cherry. If you don't have a cherry pitter, just use your fingers or a knife. Here I have my cherries. I have 2 cups of cherries. They have roughly chopped. Some are in half, some are in quarters. And I just put them in a glass pie plate. And nothing else is in the pie plate, just the cherries right now. I'm going to add a cup of hazelnuts. I love hazelnuts. If you don't like them, you could use walnuts or any kind of nut really, or leave them out if you're not a nut person. Just going to give them a little sprinkle over. And again, this was a cup of chopped hazelnuts. Next, I'm going to put 2 teaspoons of cornstarch in a 1/3 cup of sugar. I'm just going to mix that in quickly. Yeah, you know, you don't have to be super careful or anything. And then I'm going to pour this over my cherries and nuts. The cornstarch is going to thicken some of the liquid that'll come out of the cherries. I'll sprinkle the cornstarch and sugar mixture over everything, and then I'll mix them up a little. What I'm trying to do is get the sugar around every cherry along with the cornstarch, and then a lot of the sugar will fall to the bottom where it'll caramelize when it's in the oven and get ooey and gooey and delicious. Now we can make the crust, which is really a topping. I got this recipe originally from a neighbor in Boston. She was an older woman. She was in her 90s, I'd say, when I first met her, and she lived across the street from me. And I'd catch her in her yard on like 90-degree days weeding gardens. So I'd go over and weed with her. And she'd always bring out some treat from the house when we were done. And this was one of her recipes, and I've made it ever since. And I think of Anne every time I make it. So I'll get all teary thinking of her. Anyway, first put the cup of sugar in my bowl. I'm going to add 2 eggs that have come to room temperature, and I've beaten them a little too. And mix it real well. Just takes a couple seconds here. There we go. And to that, I'm going to add 1 stick of salted butter. I usually use unsalted butter, but this was Anne's recipe, and Anne used salted butter, so I'm using salted butter. I'll add that. Now this is not healthy food. This is decadent, once in a while, you know, splurge food, as you can see. So we'll stir that up. And the melted butter I've let sit for, 5 or so minutes. You don't want it too hot or it'll curdle the eggs. So once you get that stirred real well, then you add 1 cup of flour. And anytime you use flour, you don't want to overstir it. Overstirring flour causes the gluten to start binding, and that's what makes things chewy. We don't want bread, we want a nice light topping. It's somewhere between a cake and a pie. But Anne called it pie, and I respect my elders, so I call it pie. So we're just going to stir this until it's smooth. If there's a few lumps, that's okay. It's kind of like pancake batter that way. But you want it completely combined, but not overstirred. I told you that was easy. That's all there is to it. Now we'll just pour it over our cherries. That's it. I try to get this poured over as evenly as possible. It comes out in these pretty ribbons. Now Anne taught me this pie with cranberries and walnuts, and I'll make that for you sometime when cranberries are in season. But cherries are in season now, so that's why I chose to use those. And I love hazelnuts. They grow in Oregon. I love Oregon, so hazelnuts and cherries it is. Sometimes a little too much ends up in one spot, and I try to give it a little equal distribution. There we go. Sometimes when I make this pie, it runs over a little bit, so I always put a cookie sheet under it to catch any drips, because I hate cleaning the oven. So this will cook at 350 for 50 minutes. It's been 50 minutes, and our pie looks delicious. It's all bubbly and brown on the top and pretty firm. So you don't want it to be raw in the center. We'll let that come to room temperature and serve it with either whipped cream or ice cream, or just eat it plain. It's great that way too. So I couldn't wait till it came completely to room temperature. I'm gonna cut into this a little early because I've been smelling it all day. I want some. So I'm just gonna cut a little piece here and show you what it looks like. Oh, it looks so good. Ooh, I hope you can see how good that looks. The cherries, I'm gonna turn it a little. It gets all gooey and caramely and just delicious. So I've been smelling this, I gotta eat it. Oh, this is a big bite, sorry. Mmm. I can't talk, I took too big of a bite. Mmm. Oh. The hazelnuts are so good in this, and the cherries are a little bit tart, but mostly sweet. And this topping, it's somewhere between a cookie, a cake, and a pie. It's delicious. Try it soon. If you can't get fresh cherries, even use frozen ones. It'll be worth it to eat this pie. Thanks for joining us. I'm thinking of Anne in Boston right now while I eat my pie. Have a great day.